You know, sometimes one of something just isn't enough. Sometimes you need two. You need two things working together. And that's why today I'm going to teach you to build your own lightsaber and use the Force. Or, oh wait, shoot, never mind, that's Spanish too. Tonight I'm going to teach you how to use helping verb combo sentences, which is nearly as cool as the Force and lightsabers. Here's your topic and essential question. How do I use two verbs together in a sentence? Write those down and let's get started. First, let's look at a sample in English. I want an apple. This is just one verb. Sometimes that's all you need. Want is our verb. It's an action verb. It's something I can do. There you go. But sometimes you've got to combine some verbs. How about this one? I want to sleep. We've got two verbs here. And now want, instead of being an action verb, is helping the other verb to sleep. Now, you grammar purists out there are probably, your skin's crawling right now because you're like, Mr. Cox, actually want's still an action verb and to sleep is an infinitive. And you can't even have this conversation without talking about modals and auxiliaries and catenative verbs and so forth. Yeah, I know. There's a whole lot of complexity out there in the beautiful world of grammar that we're not going to talk about because we're trying to learn Spanish, so I'm super simplifying things and maybe kind of oversimplifying it somewhat so that we can understand it, wrap our heads around it, and use it to go into Spanish. So, anyways, just a disclaimer there. I'm not giving you the full picture on the grammar, but I'm going to give you what you need to know so that you can combine verbs in Spanish and make beautiful Spanish sentences. Let's look at one more English example before we start writing down our notes. One verb, I go to school. Go is a verb, it's an action verb. But I can also make it a helping verb, like in this sentence. It has three verbs actually. Am going to eat. Two helping verbs and one action, to eat. So, how do we do this in Spanish? Well, it's the same concept. Let's write our first rule down. Rule number one. When you combine a helping verb with an action verb in Spanish, conjugate the first verb, but don't conjugate the second. Here's an example. To say, I want to sleep in Spanish, you would say, yo quiero dormir. Notice how the first verb is conjugated and the second verb is not. Whenever you have a helping verb combo sentence in Spanish, you conjugate the first and you don't conjugate the second. Write that down. A second example. I am going to eat a bug. In Spanish, yo voy a comer un insecto. Once again, we conjugate the first verb, don't conjugate the second. Now this rule, conjugating the first verb, don't conjugate the second, applies to helping verb combos. It doesn't apply to other times where you might happen to have two verbs in a sentence in Spanish. Here's an example where it doesn't apply. Let's say I have a list of verbs in a sentence and each verb is its own separate unit. Well, then each one is conjugated. I see the bug, swallow it, and throw up. Three different verbs, they're not working together in helping verb combos. Each is just doing its own thing. In Spanish, each one would be conjugated. Yo veo el insecto, lo trago, y vomito. Notice how each one has the yo form, each one is conjugated. So a verb list, for example, it's not the same as a helping verb combo. Each verb gets conjugated on its own. Alright, write that down please, and write those sample sentences as a demonstration underneath that rule. Another example. Let's say you have a sentence with two separate clauses. Well, the verb in each clause is conjugated. Here's an example. They demand more and I eat another. Ellos demandan más y yo como otro. Well, two clauses, each one with its own verb. It's not a verb combo, so the conjugate the first, don't conjugate the second rule does not apply. I conjugate each verb on its own. They demand more. Ellos demandan más, conjugated in the ellos form. Yo como otro, I eat another, conjugated in the yo form. You can, however, have multiple helping verb combos. Say you got two clauses and a helping verb combo in each clause. The rule applies for each combo. Conjugate the first verb but not the second. Look at this sentence. I want to cry, but I have to continue. Well, in the first clause, yo quiero llorar, is how you would say it, pero tengo que continuar. Let's look at yo quiero llorar. First verb is conjugated. second verb is not. And in my other clause, tengo que continuar, first is conjugated and the second is not. So the rule applies anytime you have a helping verb combo. Here are some examples of verbs that work very well for helping verb combos. Write each one down with its meaning and then leave a space for a sample sentence under it. Poder, to be able to, like to can, I can do something, you can, we can. Necesitar, to need. Querer, to want. Tener, to have, as in to possess and to have to do something, kind of like we use it in English. Ir, to go. Those bottom two are in green for a reason, which I will explain in just a second. Most verb combos don't need a glue word. You can just plop them together in the sentence, and conjugate the first and not conjugate the second. Write a sample sentence underneath each one here. Poder, yo puedo bailar. Notice the first is conjugated, the second is not. We didn't need to put anything in between, just I can dance. Here's necesitar. Tú necesitas dormir. You need to sleep. No glue word in between there. Querer. Nosotros queremos hablar por teléfono. Again, conjugate the first, don't conjugate the second. No glue word in between. But look what happens with tener. Ella tiene que leer una revista. Notice how we've got that que there. Dot, dot, dot. It's a glue word. It just goes in between and joins it. The reason why? Because that's how Spanish does it. And Spanish does what it wants. Ir also has a glue word. Ella va a dibujar. That a is the glue word there. Have to have them if you're going to use them in a verb combo, these glue words. In fact, let's spend a little more time looking at each. At verb combos that do need a glue word. Let's start with the have to. That's tener. Plus que plus infinitive. Write down a couple more samples here. Like, yo tengo que estudiar. And remember, the rule still applies. Conjugate the first, don't conjugate the second. But we got that glue word there. I have to study. Another sample sentence. Tú tienes que comer. You have to eat. Ustedes tienen que ir a la escuela. You guys have to go to school. Now let's look at ir. Going to verb combo sentence. For example, yo voy a caminar. Notice how it has that glue word, but we still got first verb conjugated. The second verb is not, because it's a verb combo. I'm going to walk. Tú vas a escribir. You are going to write. Él va a compartir. He is going to share. So write those down. It's just good to remember these two instances where your verb combos have to have a glue word. One last word of advice. If you ever see this, run. Make sure you've got all those notes written down. Please make sure you've written down these sample sentences that I gave you as well. Those are important. Bring your notes to class tomorrow and bring them the next class. Have a good night, and we'll see you soon. Adios, muchachos, and may the force be with you.